Rangeley on the 19th. I planned to stop just for the night, remembers Tim, but there were some severe thunderstorms, so I decided to take a 0 day. Those days when no trail miles are logged. About lunchtime on the 20th, I ran into George at an ice cream shop. We talked for a while, and George said Gerry was scheduled to arrive that evening. He mentioned that Gerry had been hiking with Diane Gummy Bear Cook, a Canadian woman whom I had met on July 4th outside Hanover, New Hampshire. Tim had crossed paths with Gummy Bear several times on the trail. I remember being happy that she and Gerry were hiking together, Tim recalls. At the ice cream shop, Tim and George made plans to have dinner together with Gerry at a popular pizza shop in Rangeley. We did, said Tim. We had a great dinner and we talked a long time. Gerry and George, both gregarious people, opened up to him. They explained to Tim how they'd met and what their plans were for the future. Though they'd raised a family in the Nashville area, George and Gerry had most recently lived in Georgia. Gerry wanted to finish her hike and then move to Nashville, where she could be close to her grandchildren, recalled Tim. She said she wanted to be close to her babies. Gerry and George were both Air Force veterans, and Tim was retired from the Navy. The three talked for a short time about the military. We had that connection, says Tim, but we didn't go into any great detail. The three made tentative plans for the future. Because Gerry was trekking the northern half of a flip-flop hike, she hadn't hiked any part of Virginia yet. Tim lives in that state, in Lexington, about 20 minutes from the AT. We made plans for them to stay at my house when Gerry would be hiking through my part of Virginia, said Tim. I told them I would help them with shuttles and give them some local intel. Read best ice cream places. And maybe hike a few days with Gerry. George paid for the pizza. He wouldn't accept any money from me, said Tim. He was a generous guy. I had such positive feelings about them both. I looked forward to seeing them again sometime in the fall in Virginia. The next morning, July 21st, reports Tim, I'd made arrangements for a shuttle to the trailhead. Postman, a hiker I'd hiked off and on with since North Carolina, arrived at the hotel early to share the shuttle. The shuttle was late, so I called George on his cell phone to see if we could ride with him and Gerry to the trailhead. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message, but didn't hear back. The cell service in western Maine is notoriously spotty. It is not unusual to have to travel miles for any reception. Eventually, the shuttle arrived, said Tim. Once on the trail, Postman and I hiked together for a while, but he had to stop and fix a problem with his pole. I kept on hiking, knowing he'd catch up to me. About a mile or so later, Tim came upon George and Gerry stopped on the trail. "Hello," said Tim. I was happy to see them again and asked them how they were. "I'm just hiking in with Gerry for a few miles to make sure she's all set, to make sure her water's right, and to make sure she's okay for the next couple of days," said George. This stretch of trail is rough going, as they say in Maine, and many hikers require 2 nights to reach the next road crossing, usually staying at the Poplar Ridge and Spalding Mountain shelters. They all exchanged hugs, and Tim kept hiking. I had a strange feeling after our brief meeting on the trail that something wasn't right with them, Tim recalls. They weren't as warm and friendly as they had been the night before. I wondered if they were having a disagreement about something. That was the last time he saw Gerry and George on the trail. What couples, married or otherwise, don't have occasional disagreements? It could have been anything. Was George's back hurting? Gerry's? Disagreement on how much water to carry? Had Gerry forgotten something at the hotel? It was just a feeling. Had Tim misread them and actually all was well? George would later say that Inchworm had told him that the trail was getting harder for her. Tim was among the last people to see Gerry alive. 87 days earlier, on April 23, 2013, 66-year-old Geraldine Largay and a hiking companion, Jane Lee, had departed north from Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, on their quest to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. It had been an auspicious start. Both women were relatively fit, and though they did not have mountaineering experience by any means, they had worked hard to acquire the expertise to tackle the physically and mentally tough AT. Most through hikers, like Tim Walker McElhannon, are nobos, hiking northbound, starting at Springer Mountain in Georgia. About 10 to 15% hike southbound. They are called